Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Herman Sting. This is a 2023 model in M398 steel. The information that came with this knife said that it was hardened to 62 Rockwell. We'll talk more about that here in a second. Thanks so much to Herman Knives for sending this in for me to review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife has been in my pocket a lot. It's basically been alternating with the TRM Atom, but I find that it has a very, very preferable carry profile, and it's also obviously machined incredibly well. If you guys have been watching my channel for any amount of time, you'll know that I'm already a gigantic fan of Herman knives. I own a bunch of them. I very much enjoy just the style and the overall execution. If you don't know, these are made in Poland. You can find them at Polish Custom Knives. And I've also seen that DLT Trading is now a retailer that has picked them up, so you can get them there as well. The pricing is really all over the place, and it's constantly being adjusted. And there are a lot of little in-between elements that can change the price here or there. It can be a little confusing. I'm gonna tell you guys what information I have gathered about pricing. And you know, then they tell me like prices are, you know, they change. They are micro adjusted basically. So I'll tell you guys what I have picked up on. Let's go ahead and did I say thanks to my patrons and follow me on Instagram? I did probably. Okay. Let's go ahead and measure it. The overall length of the Sting is coming in at 7.75 inches overall. Blade length is coming in at a little more than 3 1/4, maybe 3.3. Cutting edge is coming in at 3 1/4. Let's do some size comparisons first up against some knives that are, you know, from Herman. So this is a micro Sting. If you've ever wondered, how does the micro Sting stack up against the Sting? We're going to do a review on this guy, but there's the micro Sting. And then this guy's not in the same family, but I think it's a good size comparison. This is mine. The Herman Dragonfly, which is definitely the largest. So if you've looked at the Sting and you've looked at the Dragonfly, which they have, you know, kind of a similar blade profile, and the handle profile is the same roughly until you get back to here, right? If you're like, I don't know, do I want the big one? The Dragonfly is huge. This guy is more of like your standard medium carry size knife, right? So there you go. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against some more common knives like the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. There we go. Definitely close to the size of the Rat 2, but more knife presence. It's just got a larger profile. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? Very, very similar. Not necessarily in terms of thickness, but overall size. Overall length, right, to the AD 20.5. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? Definitely a little bit longer than the Para 3, a little bit bigger. Last but not least, the Benchmade Bugouts. And how about up against the Benchmade Group Tilliner, in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Very similar overall length. This feels a little bit bigger than the Bugout, closer maybe to the Ritter Hogue. How's the action? Sometimes, so I currently own a lot of Herman knives, and I have sat and flipped them, and some of them have been carried and used, right? But I can tell you they have a wide range of break-in, you know, there's a lot of different things that can occur with the break-in period. Some of them come like insano smooth right out of the factory, right? And I think it's like I have a bunch of like super customs, and those seem to be a little bit more, and I think maybe those surfaces of the blade face are just a little more polished. This guy came a little bit tight, and it was kind of like right in here it was smooth, and then I got up to about right here, and it got really tight. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to sit around and flip it, and I think maybe it'll smooth out, and it did. It's got just as smooth as every other Herman I've ever owned. The action is very nearly, it's just taken a little bit of encouragement, and over time I'm certain that it will absolutely get there, but it takes just the tiniest bit of encouragement to get it to fall shut. Now, that's going to be the case. The blade has stayed centered. The blade has stayed solid on lockout, no wobble or anything like that. Don't worry if yours is just not like oil slicked glass, when you get it from the fit, just let it break in. It'll be just fine. The access to the lock bar is very good. These are insanely comfortable to disengage because every area that could have been sharp, they knocked down. They even textured that area in there, right? Plenty of access to get in and approach from the side. No double clutch. Very easy, right? The flipper tab. While it is a bit pokey, the corners have been nicely knocked down. You can see that there, so it's really not attacking your finger, though I will admit it is a little bit of a, it's just like it's not sharp, it's just pokey, right? And it's a little bit hook shaped. So you can light switch it. That's probably the most comfortable way to flip it. You can push button it, but you're really having to push your finger into that, right? So I don't know. I feel like maybe a different flipper shape would be a better idea. Just more material, less pokey. It looks good the way that it is, and I think Mr. Herman probably likes that. That's probably he's going for a specific aesthetic. But functionally, it's a little bit pokey, but it's fine, right? It'll work. The detent on this guy is tuned very well. It's about perfect. There's only one way to deploy this, and it is to flip it, and it works. You got plenty of power there. Carry profile. This does run on bearings, by the way. I feel like that was obvious. Carry profile up against the Spyderco Para 3. This is right, it's about the same. These scales are contoured as well. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. Yeah, this guy is going to be very similar to the closed the closed profile of the Para 3. Extremely similar. Definitely shorter than the PM2. Not quite as tall. That flipper tab makes it a little tall, but not really bad. My carry experience with this has just been phenomenal. I love carrying this knife. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. I'm realizing right now that my driver, there it is. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. So these come with tools. Like it actually comes with its own special custom tool. And the pivot's not proprietary. It's a simple T20, which is something I've gotten wrong in the past. I assumed that they were specific. No, you can use a T20. And then the rest of these screws are T6. I really wish Herman would move the T8, but they're not, so whatever, right? It's T6 for the pocket clip. And we got T6 for the body screws, which there are really only 3 of because they go all the way through, which I really like. And then they round them out on this side. A lot of people think that that's a bad idea because if the thread's in the titanium strip, then you're really in trouble. That I've literally never heard of that happening. It's so unlikely that will happen. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. I think that's just a worry that somebody brought up one time and it was a what if scenario that kind of blew up. But no, there are tons of knives that are constructed this way, and really it's just fewer parts. So, yeah, it does come with a tool, or you can use a T20. It's very, very simple to take apart. As long as you have the right tools, you should be good to go. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Where's the scale? There it is. Weight on the Sting is coming in at 3.84 ounces, which is right about where I would have assumed. Let's take a look at the inside. These guys do have some internal milling on this side. On the other side, it has to accommodate for the liner. Sorry, let's move the scale so it's not trying to focus on it. It has to accommodate for the liner. I think this is just 2. Nope, that's just the low setting. Okay, there we go. We've got milling on the inside for weight reduction, and then this side accommodates for the liner, as I was saying. So yeah, that's nice. 3.84 ounces or whatever it was, something like that. The balance is a little bit butt heavy, but I don't really notice it in hand. I mean, it really feels just beautifully compact and balanced in hand. So, okay, let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes here. So this is a good looking knife, and I can tell you right now, I have handled the Mantis. I own a Sting. I'm sorry. I own I own this guy now. I own the Slim. I own 2 Dragonflies. I own a Micro Sting. And, I've handled, I don't know how many different, these are incredibly consistent, and some of them make better carry knives than others. I love my Dragonfly, and I love the Dragonfly that I bought to carry, but it's pretty big. Carrying this has been an absolutely wonderful experience. It doesn't matter what I'm wearing. It doesn't matter if I'm wearing jeans or what. This just is perfect. Ergonomically, it is a dream. Normally, I don't like knives that kind of round off at the ends, but there's a long ways before it gets back here. And this knife just melts into your hand. Hermans in general do that, but this knife in particular, as far as my hands go, I wear an XL glove, right? So if your hands are the same size as mine or smaller, then you're probably going to have the same experience. If your hands are bigger, you might want to go with one of their bigger models, but my goodness, this is just great. Every part of this knife is comfortable. Every part of this knife is knocked down. The texturing is just amazing. Man, their ability to machine titanium is just beautiful. There are no sharp edges left over anywhere. A lot of times, on knives that are less expensive that have similar complexity in the milling, I'll be like, yeah, this is really, really nice. It's really beautiful, and the price reflects this. But sometimes those edges are a little sharp. They leave them a little bit kind of... This must be gone over multiple times, right? I'm sure that there are it's not like they carve a pattern out and call it a day. I would imagine there are multiple steps to the process of getting this textured, getting it finished, getting everything knocked down. That's the kind of stuff that you pay for. People get confused about, why is this? It's just titanium, M399. I can get that for... It depends on how many processes are involved to get it exactly the way that it needs to be for the final product, right? Now, if it's not your thing or you don't value those extra elements, that's your sense of value, but it still costs them more money to do it versus some other company that you might be comparing to that charges less or has less, processes involved. Couple that with the fact that these are made in Poland, where manufacturing is not cheap, certainly not as cheap as China, right? Let's get that out of the way, because I know people are going to be like, I can buy from I can get titanium and then regular M390 for $180. Yeah, you can if it's manufactured in China, sure, because the labor costs are insanely low over there. But this is a step beyond. Herman knives we're talking Shirogorov level, machine work here, and finish work as well. These are absolutely, I've got just to my right, I have probably 24 really nice Chinese knives with pretty good, titanium milling, and they're all right around $200. Pretty nice. This is way different. It's immediately apparent. Whether you have handled a bunch of knives like me in these, territories, or you haven't, I think anybody picking up those and picking up this and just playing around with it for like 30 seconds would be able to realize this is definitely on a different level. Now, should you be jumping up and kicking down doors to spend this much money? That's up to you. I'm going to try and give you as much information as I can here, but I just want to make sure that this is clear. So anyways, these come in a wide variety of different customization options, and there's a lot of different tiers. So to clear up some confusion, if you go to Polish Custom Knives, you're going to see net and gross. You're looking at the net price. That's what you're looking at. You're going to pay, if you're going to have one of these shipped to the United States, you're going to pay net plus, I think I went in and it was going to charge me like $60 for shipping, which makes sense coming from Poland, right? But that's what you're looking at is net price. You also need to see what the steel is, because Herman Knives works with M390, Elmax, M398, Damasteel, Balbach, Damacor, probably other things. All of these are going to affect the price, right? To the best of my knowledge, I don't normally talk about price at the beginning of the episode, or I guess we're like kind of halfway through here. To the best of my knowledge, the base price on these things, we're talking if you're going Elmax or M390, right? If you're looking at a Sting in plain titanium with no special polish, no special finish, no special milling to the backspace, you got to look all over the knife before you tell me you're wrong. I saw one for X price. Got to look all over it, because they charge micro amounts for little tiny things. Sometimes they randomly anodize a pocket clip pink. That's a little bit extra money, right? The base price, as far as I can tell for these things, is right around $650. If you're talking just standard M390, which you can expect to be heat treated to about 61, which is fine. Then you're going to pay like $50 to $60 for shipping. So you're probably looking at, that $700, $710, $720, something like that. For M398, you can expect to pay $50 to $75 more. Why do I say 50 to 75? Because it's hard to find a perfect comparison, and all I can do is compare to other currently available models, and it seems to move around, and it doesn't seem like they have any specific base pricing. It sounds like they're expecting to adjust with the general economy, which you can't get mad at them for. That's you just kind of have to do that. It's really hard to think from the perspective of a business owner when you are just a consumer of the product, right? Unless you own a business yourself, in which case maybe you might get that. But I'm not trying to like say anybody's stupid. I just don't want people to get up in arms about this. Probably base price something around $650 at the time of this video. I would venture to guess people buying at this territory are probably going to be more interested in buying M398 because you kind of want the sauce on top of your ice cream, right? If you're going to get ice cream, some people just eat it plain. If I'm going to eat ice creams, I'm going the whole 9 yards. I want the toppings and the sauce, and I want all that stuff, right? It's not even worth it to me to just eat vanilla ice cream. No, I want all the stuff, right? M398 is more expensive than M390. It is. It's a more expensive composition. It boasts better potential edge retention, not quite as high corrosion resistance, and it's definitely not even as tough as M390, which is already not a tough steel. Some people try to argue with me saying that M390 was designed to be tough. It isn't. You are wrong. It's not my opinion. M390 was not designed to be a tough steel, comparing to other steels in the general caliber. No, that's incorrect. M398 is even less tough, right? I haven't experienced much in the way of chipping. There were a couple of like rough edges after cutting for a bit, and I stropped them back out. The edge has continued to be razor sharp with really just one stropping. So, yeah, M398, this is hardened to 62. I think M398 can actually get harder optimally. I think it's like 62 to 64 is what it's really supposed to be at. So this is right there at the base, and it seems to be doing well. I can't really argue. It's going to be a nightmare to sharpen. That's the problem, right? So if you're going to use this, I understand wanting the sauce and cherries with your ice cream, but you better be ready to sharpen it. Unless you are somebody who is very practiced, right, and has all the equipment, it's not going to be super fun to sharpen. But anyways, your M398 versions are probably going to run something like $725-ish. Now, if you want extra things like anodizing, or especially if you want Damascus and you want a different steel like Damacor or Damasteel, you're going to pay way more money. If you want this knife with a Damascus inlay and some Damasteel, it's going to be like, I don't know, $1,500 to $1,800. If you want the whole thing in Damascus or black Damascus with a Damasteel or Damacor blade, you're going to be paying anywhere from $2,400 to $3,000, sometimes a little bit more. That's how it is. That's just what we're looking at here. Those are essentially, these are already semi-customs. When you add in materials like that, we're getting up into crazy prices, right? But the way that they have these priced, I think is pretty fair. In fact, I think these are some of the best knives for the money at this tier, right? At this same tier, we're looking at Koenig. We're looking at brown knives, like if we're talking about knives from the United States, right? You bump up a step in price and you're looking at Shirogorov. And honestly, Shirogorov doesn't necessarily bring a lot more to the table for the money, right? CKF charges a very similar price for their knives, and you might get a little bit more complexity, a little bit more dynamicness or whatever. That's not a real word with the materials, but I feel like the execution is better on Herman knives. These are just very, very, very well made. The cutting geometry of that blade is wonderful, and on this one, I gotta assume that this has a little bit of an upgrade in terms of the finish on the blade, because this is different than the tumbled finish on my Sting. This is, I don't know what we call this, but it's almost like the blade itself has like eggshell on it. So I don't know if this is like standard now or what, but it's real nice and smooth. You can't feel it. This thing just glides through material like it's nothing. On top of that, they polish these pivots, which I think come in a few different forms. And then, you got to remember they give you a tool and a little card and everything, right? That's nice little touches. But the blade is just wonderful. I really wish that they would put some jimping back here. I think that would be really nice. It's the only thing that I really felt like I was missing. Outside of that, the fully flat ground blade, just the beautiful edge geometry, which, by the way, I don't think we actually, did we measure blade stock thickness? I don't think we did. I bet this is 135. I would be shocked to find out it's more than that, but you know, it happens regularly. Okay, it's even less than that. I'm coming in at 126. Now it's 125. 125,000. So that's that's where it should be, I think. It says Herman on the blade, and then on the other side, this one says M398. I think this is a fantastic geometry for M398, and for what I do with knives, which is just cutting things like, you know, mostly cardboard, man, this stuff really shrugs it off, even at 62. Even at 62, all right, let's say you take 62 Rockwell hardness M390, 62 Rockwell hardness M398. Make no mistake, the M398 will vastly outperform M390 at the same Rockwell hardness. It will vastly outperform it. Every point of increase has an exponential effect on it. So while 62 will, you know, if we're talking just in terms of edge retention, make a joke of M390, 63 will make, I mean, it's there's no contest whatsoever at that point, certainly at 64, right? It does become more brittle, and M398 is more brittle than M390 in general. So if you're the type of person who maybe doesn't abuse their knives, but you get on the edge of it, you know, here or there, you do some questionable stuff, I wouldn't recommend M390. I wouldn't recommend either of those steels. I would recommend something else, right? The tip is very pokey, but also very delicate, and the taper down to the tip is definitely aggressive. This will poke for sure. This is designed to be a light to medium use EDC knife. Certainly not, I mean, you can take it out and process wood with it, but if you're planning on doing a lot of like destruction with the tip, bad idea. Basically what I'm saying is common sense should be applied here, right? A knife's value is not reduced to how much stupid caveman abuse you can apply to the blade. That is a weird system of value, because at that point it's like, well, I would say whatever knife you're comparing with, right, you spent too much money on the knife because what you needed was a simple hammer or screwdriver, right? So I mean, I really come down on this mindset because I really think it's stupid. I think you should be using the right tool for the job, but at the same time, I think it's totally okay to add elements to something that caters to the enthusiast, right? If you are getting what you want out of it, which in some cases is just the general happiness that comes with buying something like this that has all of that work in it, even if that work does not translate to utility, you are still getting enjoyment out of it. You're still getting something, even if that something is not tangible. What is he talking about today? He's 22 minutes in. Finish the knife review. Sorry. I'm a passionate knife reviewer here, guys. I wouldn't have 3,200 uploads if I didn't care about this stuff. The backspacer is gorgeous. This one's been a little polished, which makes me think that this one's a little bit of an upgrade, right? That's why I had to go back and check through the pricing, because I was like, no way this is completely base, right? I've seen a lot of different, they do little tiny things like this. They're just randomly like, this one's got a polished backspacer, right? You know, and some of them are more or less that way. Some of them have texturing. Some of them have little patterns on them, right? The pocket clip I still think is, number one, I got to say this. We obviously don't want to be milling out the same spots on both sides for lefties here, because this is a big pocket that's milled out underneath. It just kind of helps the pocket clip slide into place. And I'll admit, as much as I make fun of people for complaining that a little pocket's milled out on one side, I'll admit I wouldn't want that on both sides. But maybe making lefty versions would be a good idea. We still need to be catering to left-handed people. So if you can't make a reversible clip, this obviously couldn't be reversed because it's curved, then we should be making a little bit, for lefties. I think lefties account for roughly 10% of the population, roughly. So just making 5% of your knives lefty, and that's a big ask, right? It's not like they can just, sure, we'll make lefties, right? There's a lot of adjustments that need to be made to machines to make them do that. But I think it would be a good idea to do that, because I want to keep the milled clip. I wouldn't want them to do like a wraparound stamped clip or anything like that. So yeah, I think that would be a good idea. But the pocket clip, the way that it is mounted here, as it is very, very nice. It carries well. I think the clip is just too long though. It's just like there's just too much clip. I really don't. I don't think we need much more than about like this, right? But okay, ergonomically, I'm aware that it's there, but it's not really a hotspot, and that's because they've, even though it's slim, this is knocked down all the way around, right? This is one of those like the way that they mill it. it's got teeny tiny, you can see it. It's got micro texturing in there. And that's the same with in here as well. Real nice when you look up close. I like details. I think that's just a product of the machining process. It's not like they went in and were like, let's make little marks in between. I think that's just part of it. But it looks nice, right? Stop pin located in its traditional spot. Plenty of shouldering. No blade play up, down, left, or right. No, lock stick at all. No double clutch. No pivot lash. Extremely smooth in here. Very nice click and still centered. Still perfectly centered with no detail lash. This is a fantastic. The Sting is a fantastic EDC knife. And between this and the Slim, I think these are probably the best EDC sized knives. The Sting is probably that's probably their EDC king. It really is just exactly the right size, and that blade and everything just really, it just feels like a perfectly honed EDC knife. They need to have lefty versions. The flipper tab is a little bit pokey, right? And I really wish that they would outline their base pricing on the website somewhere. As now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Herman has done that on his website. I couldn't find it. Maybe I'm an idiot. I couldn't figure it out. But I think pricing needs to, baseline pricing needs to be displayed. And if it's adjusted, it should be adjusted so that everybody can see it. DLT Trading had really high price tags, it seemed like, on a lot of this stuff. But maybe I was missing something. There could have been micro elements on some of those knives. Again, when you guys go to look at pricing, you're going to be like, somebody's getting their face ripped off. No, I think what's happening is that there are little tiny elements to knives that look like they're base models, but have something extra, and you're being charged for it, which makes sense because it's extra work, right? At $650 for LMAX or M390 or $725-ish for M398. I think these are extremely competitive, and I know that people are like, what? How can you say that? It's very rare that I, narrow in and say that something like this is really 100% priced correctly, because you have to be careful with that. But if you're going to spend this much money on a knife like this, right? If you're going to spend this much money on a knife, you should be looking at Herman knives. These are amazing. And at this point, it's not just me saying it or a couple of reviewers. There are lots of people who have their hands on these things, right? And you should be listening to other people down in the comments section or on Reddit or Blade Forums or Instagram or wherever, right? You should be listening to what other people are saying, right? Not just the YouTube reviewers, but there's pretty widespread applause for these things, and it's well deserved. Herman's making a good product, and they are putting a good price tag on it. They will charge people more money for things that are more catered to the enthusiast because they, have to put extra work in, and that's fair. But for a base model, man, this is almost like where you should land. This is almost like a checkpoint for that. If you're like, I've had the Hinders, I've had the Chris Reeves, and I've had the, the Striders or whatever. I've had the Demcos. I'm ready to do something else, venture out, maybe into something. I'll look at U.S. stuff, but I'm also looking at some stuff from some other countries. Koenig and Brown are definitely there, but Herman also, I feel like, is the next obvious place to go because they're available, but they exhibit the same qualities, right? And this is, really like, I feel like people handling this and a Shirogorov side by side, and you look at the price tags, the vast majority of people are going to go with Herman. I love Shirogorov, but I feel like the vast majority of people are going to go with Herman, and I get it, right? This is wonderful. Not often that I put a knife this expensive in my recommended knives playlist, but I'm going to this time. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying that it's absolutely everybody that, should be going out and spending this much money on a knife. I'm saying specifically people who are considering once you have graduated into this pre-tier, right? You're teetering on the edge and you're like, do I want to spend more money? If you're right there, this is a knife I can recommend to you. it doubles as an incredible EDC knife. Absolutely incredible. It's really, really great. This is not just slapped together. This is a purpose-built design, and probably the best EDC in their lineup. So I will link as many places as I can for these knives down in the description. So check them out. Thanks again to Polish Custom Knives for providing this knife for review. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.